Voyage.
I'm Darren Marlar, your host for All Things Felonious. Welcome to Allegedly. In this true crime anthology series, we ask, did it really happen? Could it really happen? In this episode, you'll learn about a man who was, allegedly, a victim of the biggest financial crime in history. Period. All human history. His son has the story. There's Russian gold, Project Rosebud, and $1.7 trillion is only the commission on the deal. Who better to play the man at the center of this story than the once-upon-a-time host of Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction, Jonathan Frakes. Listen on and see if you'll become a believer.
My name is Richard Golden, and my father was a victim of the biggest financial crime in history.
And my name is Adam Prince, host and producer of today's true crime podcast, Money Supply. Rich, would you please tell us a little bit about your father and your relationship with him?
Well, from the time I can remember as a Navy captain, all of the crew that he interacted with always had so much respect for him, and in the corporate world, the same thing, but yet he always had time to take his sons out for batting practice, and we just always looked up to him in so many different ways.
Sounds like he was your personal hero.
Absolutely.
You ever hear a story and you think, come on, that can't be true?
Of course, a tall tale, right?
Which is how I would describe your story. I mean, true or not true, it's a whopper.
Well, this is all based on documents my father created, which would be admissible in a court of law. In other words, it's more than just hearsay.
Okay, let's start at the top.
All right, my dad, Roger Golden, was a high-powered corporate attorney, never lost a case. In 1988, not long before the fall of the Berlin Wall, he was approached by the owner of a brokerage firm in Chicago.
Let's call him the broker. In fact, the only real name we're going to use is for Rich's dad.
So the broker's company earned a big commission on a massive transfer of wealth from the Soviet Union. Basically, the Russians had been hoarding gold for centuries as the Soviet Union was teetering the powers that be arranged for gold reserves to leave the USSR and enter the Western economy by depositing them into a bank in Hong Kong. The broker had been working on this deal for a while, facilitating the transfer, and for that he was to receive quite a large commission. But as that money came into the U.S., it was flagged by the Treasury Department and held up indefinitely. So the broker brought in my father to essentially unstick the gears and get the Treasury Department to release the funds.
How large a commission are we talking here?
$1.7 trillion.
You mean billion, right?
Nope, you heard me right the first time. 1.7 trillion with a T.
See what I mean? So, Rich, can you explain how this astronomical number came about? And just for context, the total amount of goods and services produced in Russia, the GDP, was around $500 billion that year. That's not even a third of your father's $1.7 trillion commission. And the world GDP, all the economies on Earth put together, the GDP for that was $22.5 trillion. 1.7 trillion was just the commission. How big was this deal? How much money was being transferred?
A lot.
Clearly, but how much?
Well, I don't know exactly.
Did your dad know?
I'm not sure, but I know it sounds weird, but let me explain.
Please.
So the number 1.7 trillion was predetermined and did not reflect a normal percentage of the deal. Years later, he would come to understand better where this crazy high number comes from. Basically, if you recall, in the 70s, the early 1970s, the world economy was swimming in petrodollars, money made from the sale of oil, which was astronomically high. During a series of oil shocks throughout the decade, U.S. and banks around the world had a problem. What to do with all that money? They lent it to the third world nations in South and Central America, but it soon became apparent that those countries would not be able to pay the money back. They took out loans just to pay the interest back on the principal. The bottom line is it left a $1.7 trillion hole in the U.S. economy. So the head of the CIA at the time came up with a fix to the problem he called Project Rosebud. It would take another decade or so for this plan to be put into action. And by then he was let's just say about as high up in government as you can get.
What did your father think about all this? Surely he had questions.
Well, first of all, my dad and the broker had no idea there was a larger game being played. From their perspective, this was just a straight up business deal. The only thing that was unusual about it was the fact that it originated in Russia and, of course, the size of the deal itself.
I have to imagine your dad stood to make a ton of money himself.
Well, not as much as you would think. He was also getting ready to retire. He actually did retire once, but he lost everything he had in a bad business deal. He came out of retirement, which is how he met the broker. Dad got his house in order and he was ready to retire for good. He promised my mom they'd travel and play a lot of golf. He knew that, in any case, when you go up against the government, it had the potential to drag out. So he didn't want to take it to that length.
So he tells the broker no, right?
Well, he meets with him and does, in the courtesy of hearing him out. The broker's desperate and my dad's friendly with him, so he's like, I'll think about it. But in his heart, he's looking for a way to turn it down.
We, of course, weren't in the room with Roger back in 1988, but if we were, and we'd recorded these conversations on a cassette, they might have sounded something like this.
Roger? Didn't expect to see you here.
I had a more entertaining evening planned with my wife, but mind if I...
Sure. Come on in.
When I left your office, I was coming up with half a dozen other lawyers to foist you off to.
Why? This would be the biggest case of your career.
Exactly why I was going to say no. Do you play golf?
Not well.
I'm no Nicholas. And my wife, she's nipping at my heels. She'll beat me if we play enough. And that's the thing. We've been married 30 years. Made it through lots of ups and downs. But it's time to bury the briefcase. You go up against the government, they'll wear you down. It's a battle of wills, and it takes time.
But you're ready to trade in your loafers for spikes, huh?
Couldn't have said it better.
Yet, you're standing here in my house, dripping water on my floor.
Well, I left your office today and went down the elevator. As I walked to my car, a G-man came over, flashed a badge from the Treasury. He told me I'd be smart to back away from this case.
He said, back away?
And he brought up your record.
Oh.
Look, I don't mean to embarrass you, but we're better off if we lay our cards on the table. I know you served 2 years. I knew that when we met.
Of course. You do your homework.
I admit, I was wary at first, but you paid your debt to society, and you've proven to be a stand-up guy.
Is that why the Treasury is holding up my funds? My fraud conviction?
Even if Mother Teresa was a recipient, a fund transfer this large will ring bells in every Treasury office from here to D.C.
I was told the government needs to study the impact of releasing the funds.
Maybe. But it's not the whole story. When someone tells me that I shouldn't dig somewhere, the first thing I do is grab my shovel.
His shovel being...
A writ of mandamus.
A writ of what?
Mandamus. My father knew a judge in the D.C. circuit and filed it with him. It's basically an order from a federal judge, in this case, to the Department of Treasury.
Order to what?
To knock it off, basically, and hand over the money, plus interest and damages.
More than 1.7 trillion?
Yeah, the final number landed somewhere between 6 and 8 trillion. The interesting thing is the powers that be never expected this case to actually land in federal court, but the order also had the World Bank attached to it, which is ironically why it was accepted into the federal court.
So the judge sided with the broker?
Yes, sir, and he sent the writ.
I'm guessing that didn't do the trick.
No, it did not.
Thanks for coming, Roger.
Close the door, would you?
Sure. What's that?
Hot dogs.
Oh?
We got onions, some sweet pickled relish. How they make it that green, I don't want to know. We got dill pickle spears, tomato slices. Did they include the mustard? Please don't tell me that they forgot the... Here it is.
Thanks, Raj. To what do I owe the honor?
Good news deserves a good lunch.
What are you talking about?
If the Treasury is doing anything other than studying your money, we can invalidate their claim.
What? Like making money off my money?
I'm not sure yet. I have a contact, someone who used to work for me, a friend. Lucky for us, these days, she's a budget analyst at the Treasury. She told me that 37 politicians, most of them in the House and Senate, were given deposits to offshore accounts in the last week.
How does she know this?
Apparently the payments were authorized by the Federal Reserve.
She has records backing this up?
I haven't seen them yet, but she says she does, and I believe her. She's coming into my office next week so I can deposition her on tape. I'll get the records then.
Hold up. I'm not getting the connection between the payoffs to members of Congress and this case.
Basically, there was hush money floating around from the Federal Reserve to keep anyone quiet who needed to be kept quiet and who wanted to accept the temptation of the hush money. At this point, my father's case hinged on getting his mole in the Treasury Department on tape, testifying to the payoffs that were uncovered. But
Roger?
We have a problem. My friend was supposed to come in this morning to the depot, but she didn't show.
Did she leave you a message?
No, and she's not picking up my calls.
Is she dependable?
I'd rather have her pick me up at the airport than my wife.
So what do you have for lunch on bad news days?
Antacid.
What if we can't get her?
We're back to where we started.
Hey, what? Raj, hang on. You can't just come in here.
What's going on?
Team of Feds just showed up. Hey, what do you do? Put that down.
What agency?
Treasury, an agent named Hobbs.
We've met. Ask him if he has a warrant.
He says he has one from the Central District Court of Illinois.
Did he show it to you?
No.
Ask for it. He has to present it.
Hang on. Oh, he's patting his jacket like he's looking for it. Come
If
on.
they don't have a warrant, you can kick them out.
Roger, can you come over?
On my way. Don't let them take so much as a paperclip.
That's easier said than done.
okay, maybe it wasn't quite that dramatic, but my father knew the feds were watching them closely.
How closely? Like the mob?
If you mean wiretaps, yeah. You know, they don't know if phones were tapped, but they assumed that they were, certainly.
Whatever happened to that writ of mandamus that the judge filed? Shouldn't that force the Treasury to hand over the money?
Well, this is where it gets interesting.
Hop in.
Thanks for swinging by for me.
Seems like this is the only place we can talk and not be on a Fed's party line.
Any word on our friend at Treasury?
Yeah. She's in the hospital.
Why? What happened? What did she say?
She didn't. Her sister called me back. She went into a diabetic coma a few days ago.
Oh,
Sorry to play bad Santa, but I've got some more unwelcome news. The Treasury appealed the writ.
what happens now?
It could sit in appellate court
For how long?
until Chicago wins another series.
Son of a bitch.
I have an old friend at the D.C. district.
The judge who sent the writ?
Yeah, I'll see if he can push it through for review.
Who reviews it?
The Supreme Court.
Whoa. What happens if they don't?
We're stuck in limbo till they bury us between third base and home.
Well, if they were going to get a fair shake anywhere, it's the Supreme Court, right?
Well, hardly.
Okay, I set you up there.
I see that. Thank you.
So did the Supreme Court review the appeal of the writ of mandamus?
They did.
And what happened?
My father gets called to Washington to go over their findings
Go over it with whom?
with the court itself.
So your father heads to D.C. to appear before the Supreme Court, like in a courtroom?
Not exactly. He was invited to one of those exclusive supper clubs. I forgot the name of the place.
Hang on. This sounds iffy to me. Meeting in a private club with the attorney for one side of a case? Is that how things normally work?
Probably not, but this is certainly one of a kind situation.
I'll give you that. Okay, so I'm picturing the club in my head. Oak paneled walls, leather couches, cigar smoke.
Yeah, pretty much something like that.
Does your dad walk into some back room where all 9 judges are there waiting for him?
There was actually only one of them that was there, Judge.
You can't say any names here.
Oh, right, got it. Well, he was there representing the court.
Let me guess. The judge tears up the writ and tells Roger to get lost.
Not quite. He tells my father that on review, the court sided with the D.C. Circuit judge to uphold the writ, which was good news, including penalties and interest.
Wow. So the broker's going to get his $6 trillion, and your dad gets what, a third of it on contingency?
Well, they agreed on the front end for a flat fee of $250 million for my father.
That's all? A lousy $250 million?
Well, that's still a lot of money.
I'm guessing there's more to the story since this is true crime and I'm not seeing the crime.
Well, hold your horses, there's more. So the judge, the Supreme Court judge, says in effect, not so fast. We agreed with you in theory, but in practice, that's a whole other ballgame.
Here comes the bad news.
Really bad. While the court upholds the writ, which is in order, remember, it is going to remain sealed, as they say, and they put the order inside the Supreme Court vault.
The Supreme Court has a vault?
Every court in the country has a vault of some kind or another.
What do they keep in there?
Well, I have no idea. Sealed files.
Is it stuffed with sealed writs?
That's the thing. This is the only unexecuted order to ever be stuck in the Supreme Court vault in the history of the country.
How do you know this?
Well, it's by definition, the Supreme Court should never be able to issue an order and then not have the power to see it executed.
Please don't tell me this is how the story ends.
Well, I can't promise you a happy ending, but the story's not over. In fact, the door to this private room opens and another gentleman enters. My father recognizes him from TV.
Remember, no names.
Right, okay. Well, let's just say he's a big wig at the Fed.
The Fed, as in the Federal Reserve Bank?
Correct, which is another whole big scam. Don't get me started on that.
I won't, but for our listeners, the Fed is the central banking system of the United States. It was created in 1913 to prevent financial crises by controlling the money supply. How many dollars are out there? This determines interest rates, which impacts everything, down to the interest you pay on your credit cards. The Fed is the single biggest mover of the economy.
And did you know the Fed system is made up of 12 privately owned banks? They're not part of the government, yet they control all the money. Their directors are chosen by their stockholders, not by the people. Our system is in the hands of an elite that have been bilking us for well over a century.
I thought we weren't going down that rabbit hole.
Well,
You couldn't help yourself.
I think it's actually relevant.
Okay, let's get back to the guy who shows up at the meeting. Since we're not using names, let's just call him the Fed bigwig.
Mr. Golden,
I know who you are.
Please, have a seat.
I'd rather stand.
All right, suit yourself. I'm sure your time is valuable, so I'll get right to it. Your client has a legitimate claim,
I'm glad we agree.
but it cannot be fulfilled.
Care to say why?
Size. Mr. Golden, if we were talking $100 million, an injection of that much capital would hardly create a ripple in the system. But $1.7 trillion would be a tsunami.
You're forgetting interest and penalties.
The job of the Federal Reserve System is to regulate the size of the money supply. It is our job alone. We simply cannot allow someone else to flood the market with that much currency. Do you know what would happen to the price of the dollar?
I slept through macroeconomics, but I'm assuming it would go down.
It would crater, bringing the global economy down with it. The Depression would look like a party.
That's not how we want to handle it. My client and I have a plan to use the money to stimulate the economy.
Well, that is not your job. Mr. Golden, it's time for this to come to an end.
Gentlemen, my whole life, I've believed in this country, the dream. Liberty for its citizens and justice for all. Abolition, civil rights. These all came slowly, but they came. If someone transgresses you, our judicial system is there to deliver justice. That's why I became a lawyer. back in the leather football helmet days. But that dream, I'm finally starting to wake up from it. I happen to know that just 2 weeks ago, 37 members of Congress, plus top White House officials, and even members of the Supreme Court received compensation in offshore accounts.
Compensation?
I tend to be too polite for my own good. Hush money.
That is quite an accusation.
This case tends to scale everything up.
I assume you can back up your claim?
I have no interest in blowing up the economy or, for that matter, exposing the corruptions of the political elite. This is my last case. All I want is justice for my client, and maybe restore a bit of the dream.
$1.7 trillion to restore a dream?
Plus penalties and interest.
Don't press your luck, Mr. Golden.
I'm a Chicago sports fan.
Well, perhaps there is a middle way. I'm not interested in your money. My only concern is stability. We can release the funds in pieces over time. This would enable my organization to plan for a surplus to the money supply in increments that won't harm the economy. In exchange, you and your client agree to keep your findings to yourself and never try to get that order pulled from the vault.
Okay, first of all, your dad sounds like a badass.
Well, he was in his own way.
I assume when he said that he had evidence of all those payoffs, he was bluffing.
He wasn't.
I thought your dad's friend was in a coma.
I meant he wasn't bluffing because, well, this meeting didn't really happen like that.
How did it happen?
Well, it didn't exactly happen. I mean, the writ of mandamus was appealed by the Treasury, and it remains in the Supreme Court vault, sealed.
So his conversation with the Fed bigwig, his big monologue about his dream about democracy?
I was imagining what my dad would say if he got these people in a room.
What about the money? Did they agree to give it to his client or not?
They did. That's accurate. And they promised to do so in pieces over 18 months.
That's what, $95 billion a month? That'll cover your rent.
Right. At that point, I think I'd buy.
True. So your father must have been rolling in it. I thought you said this was a crime.
Well, first of all, I said the Treasury promised to pay. I never said they actually followed through with it.
Ah.
Right. So that began a long delay game by the Treasury Department. They would tell my father, you're getting your first tranche of money next week. And then next week would come and there'd be some excuse. And they would say, oh, yeah, just one more week. And this process went on for a very long time.
Did this span more than one presidency?
Oh, yes.
Did the change in administration affect the case?
It seemed to at the time. The president's chief of staff was on the case, and everyone said he was a straight shooter. He was like, we're going to get this thing done.
And?
Well, what do you think?
Same stuff, different day?
Yep.
So as all this was going on, did you know about this?
Oh, yeah. I was already out of school by then. My brother and I were working with my dad on other businesses. We knew everything.
Then how did you feel about all this? I mean, it must have been an emotional roller coaster.
Well, it was for my dad, but not so much for me. I was doubtful from the start.
Doubtful about the existence of the commission?
No, that's real. The deal was real. I'm telling you, I was doubtful if the government was ever going to release the money. I'm a realist, but my father was an idealist. He was blinded by his desire to redeem himself, to justify all the time and effort he spent. But after about a decade on the case, he passed away. He was too young at the age of 67.
I'm sorry.
Well, thank you.
I guess he never got to see the case through. What about the broker?
Well, he took my dad's death pretty hard. Over the years, they become best friends. And for the case, he continued to wait for the stars to align, so to speak, never giving up hope. He kept my mother in a loop. 9 months after my dad's death, the broker receives word from the president's chief of staff that the first installment will hit his account that week. But the night before it was supposed to happen, the broker dies in a sleep of natural causes.
So what happened to the case at that point? Surely there are other people who would fight the fight.
The only people left were the broker's 2 grown sons. But they saw their father kind of like Don Quixote tilting at windmills.
So the case died with him?
It died with him.
And what happened to the 1.7 trillion?
Well, you remember in the late 90s when there was a federal budget surplus for the first time since the late 60s.
Are you suggesting that the commission, the 1.7 trillion, is the reason why?
I am. Remember Project Rosebud, the plan to make America whole from the bad loans to South America?
Yeah, but why wait all that time to do it? This took 10 years.
Well, the timing had to be right for it to take place, first of all, but there was so many moving parts in all the central banks of the Western world and so forth. It was not a fast-moving process.
What do you think your dad and the broker would have done with the money? Buy a baseball team?
Right. Well, I don't think they would have done that. But I think that, they would have kept a chunk of it for themselves and for their families, and they agreed they would give most of the money away. They were both spiritual men, guided by their faith. It's what bonded them when they first met.
If they had gotten everything they had asked for, $7 trillion, who would they have given the money to?
Well, the first recipient would have been the federal government of the United States. At that time, the national debt was a little over $4 trillion. That would have left $3 trillion once that was paid off.
You're saying they would have paid off the national debt. And who would be the second recipient?
Well, the people of the United States. The plan was that every voter would get an equal share.
That's about $25,000 each.
Sounds about right. Something like that. It was supposed to be a reset for the economy and all of us together. It was supposed to benefit everyone is the bottom line. The broker and my father were victims of a massive theft, the largest in the history of mankind probably, as I said, but they're not the only victims is the point. On another level, the rest of the country lost out. Every American citizen was victimized.
You've written a story in a book called Golden Jubilee. What did you hope to achieve by telling it?
Well, first of all, I want to, pay tribute to my father's selfless, fruitless quest for the last decade of his life and pay tribute to him. And also to let the American public know that there exists an unexecuted Supreme Court order sealed in the vault. I say unseal the files and prove the story right or wrong. And if the files are there, let's execute the order. If they're not, I'll shut up and go away.
If you're listening, Supreme Court, open your vault and show us the writ. One thing I know is true is Rich's love for his dad. As for the rest of the story, some details remain murky, others hard to swallow. Was this the biggest financial crime in history? That's for you to decide. If you're interested in hearing more about Roger's story, you can check out Rich Golden's book, Golden Jubilee, on Amazon. The link is in the show notes.
Allegedly is a production of Voyage Media. The series is produced by Nat Mundell, Robert Midas, Dan Benamore, and Adam Prince, in association with Darren Marlar's Weird Darkness. This episode, Money Supply, was written and directed by Adam Prince, based on Rich Golden's book, Golden Jubilee. Edited, sound designed, and mixed by Nick Mesite. Original music by Derlis Gonzalez. Starring Jonathan Frakes. Additional cast credits can be found in the show notes. If you're enjoying the show, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you're listening, and subscribe now for future episodes.
On the next episode of Allegedly, sometimes the hooker with a heart of gold maybe does not have a heart of gold. Love goes wrong in the Philippines, complete with affairs, poison, drugs, and crooked court cases. That's next time